Welcome back to Inside This Teacher's Studio, presented by veteran dual language educator Toni Morgan. This time, Toni welcomes experienced teacher and longtime friend Chris Meade.
Chris Meade began her teaching career as a museum educator, presenting programming to visiting school groups at the Boston Children's Museum and the Adler Planetarium in Chicago. She wanted a career, though, in which she could build relationships with students rather than seeing different groups come and go each day. So she pursued a master's in teaching and learning at DePaul University and became a certified elementary school teacher. She taught for 8 years in the Hinsdale School District, working with third graders. After taking some time off to raise her own children, she returned to the profession at the Frankfurt School District, working for many years as a math specialist, interventionist, and as a fifth grade classroom teacher. Inside This Teacher's Studio is very proud to welcome Christine Aronson Meade.
Oh, so formal.
We're going to start out with your past. Okay, we know a little bit about you now. What in your past would have predicted that you would become a teacher?
Well, I had a very good childhood, and as growing up, school was definitely my happy place. That's where I felt most comfortable. I loved being around the other kids. I loved the praise of the teachers. I loved the projects. I loved everything about school. Always kind of dreaded summer vacation when it was coming, because it would be time away from school. So school was my jam. So I guess that was one thing. In fact, at the end of the school year, I would ask the teachers for their leftover worksheets so I could play school over the summer. And then I wondered, why can't I make friends? So let's do these worksheets over the summer. Friends, where are you, friends? Despite us living in the same house, we were in 3 different elementary schools growing up, just because the area was growing and they had to remap the school district. And so it was hard. Your friends from the neighborhood weren't friends from school. It was hard to maintain. You had different friends every year. I got to meet lots of different people, but it was hard to develop any friendship that was sustained, before moving to another school. But yes, I love school. Schools are where I feel safe. Even now, when I walk into a school building, I just love looking at what's on the walls and, how people decorate their classrooms and, the mission statements of the school.
You love mission statements?
No, just the whole vibe. When you walk in the school, what's the vibe that you get when you walk in?
Just check.
So, no, I don't like writing them or having meetings about them or discussing them. Yeah.
Okay. Want to make sure. Who were some mentors who influenced your teaching style?
Well, I was lucky. I had lots of good elementary school teachers, which made me like school. But 2 that stand out, my high school teacher for high school English, freshman English and senior English, same person, Ms. Nicholas, and she was just wonderful. She taught to big ideas like heroism, or propaganda, or jealousy, and then she would bring in literature and nonfiction and recordings and have conversations built around those themes. And now it seems very commonplace. Well, everybody does that, but it was not how things were taught back in the day, in the 1980s. And she was so good about getting conversations going. She knew each student, individually. We thought she was radical. She had radical Gilda Radner hair, and she made us read things about, Hitler and Jesus and Marxism and, the whole gamut. And so one day we just refused to participate in any of her wonderful discussions. We had had enough of her crazy ways. And so none of us responded to any of her prompts, any of her questions. She caught on pretty fast what was going on. And she asked, she said, well, if I agree to stand on my head at the end of class. If we have a good class discussion, would you then have a class discussion? And we all did the silent nod to each other and said, it's worth it. We will have a good class discussion if we can see this crazy lady stand on her head at the end of class. And we had a good discussion. She stood on her head at the end of class, and it was just her devotion to, I learned more, those posters that say everything I learned in kindergarten.
Yeah.
I feel like that everything I learned in high school, I learned in Miss Nicholas's freshman English class, and then peppered by the senior English. When I was in grad school, we had a presenter come in. I'm sorry, can we cut for a second?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
One, I don't know if you want to close that window, because if the car's going by, is that kind of...
Well,
No.
whatever's comfortable
Yeah,
for you.
we can
Yeah.
close it, because I'm kind of distracted by it. And then I just took a sip of water, and now I have to burp a bunch. I hope this is all...
I thought I was going to be the one
Cut.
burping.
Oh, this
No, it'll be
blooper-
cut.
This blooper reel is going to be fantastic.
Burp, burp, burp.
burp.
That was the
There's like
Xfinity guy.
19 Xfinity trucks go by.
I know. Somebody's having a good day.
I feel like this is all just me jibber jabbering.
Would you just relax and not worry about it?
It is not. It's from out here, very fun.
Okay, well,
Very fun. So,
but yeah, I didn't even give like Miss Nicholas all of her credit. Like sex education, I learned from Othello, and
Oh, wow.
economics. So yeah, kind of want to redo that section again,
Yeah.
or add to it at least, because
Yeah.
I feel like I just told the crazy lady standing on her head, but that's not what
Right. Well, just
The
go
thing
on
is-
from where you were. Just go on. Like you did, just not like say and another thing, and then we'll just cut it so that it goes into the next part.
Okay, and not just redo it, or
No.
yeah, no,
Redoing it makes it hard.
I'll just kind of chunk out. I'm going to
Okay.
edit.
He'll
but
work it.
I'm going to edit, but I'm not fucking Stanley Kubrick. It's
right?
we're just
No,
gonna.
I know. It's like, oh, take out this word, take out that word, take out that.
He's
glance.
done that for Chris when Chris was doing poetry when he was 3. He had to do like practically word by word editing.
Yeah, so I don't know
So-
if it's easier just to start over and just
No,
scratch.
just go ahead and keep rolling. Because what I'll do is I'll just crossfade, and it will be
Yeah.
it'll
Okay.
be pretty seamless.
Bleep, 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 bleep. Okay. And action. The poster, I had mentioned the poster, everything I learned in kindergarten.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like everything I learned in high school, I learned in her freshman English class. From economics, I did not know the difference between capitalism and communism. They both started with a C. They both had isms at the end, but I had no, but through literature and nonfiction and discussion, learned all that. Learned economics. Learned sex education. From Othello. Different things that came up that I did not even know. Existed.
How did that
We had
work? How did that
It
work?
was something about bed sheets and and this and that, and so it was new information to me. Politics, fascism, versus communism, those kind of things. Religion, we read Sermon on the Mount, and we read other things. Just so many things in that 1 year. She was amazing, just
Yeah.
amazing. My second mentor was Danny Reilly, and Danette Reilly. She goes by Danny, and she was a guest speaker at my grad school class in DePaul, and she came in with posters and hanging things on the wall, and I never was convinced that I could be a teacher because I had a vision of what a teacher was, like somebody who kept a tidy grade book and somebody who kept, tidy plans and had a neat desk and, and nice lessons. But I really was concentrated on this tidy grade book with nice printing, and I knew that wasn't me. Danny really came in and she did a little quick talk about integration and using the Great Kapok Tree, the picture book,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and how she did graphing and mathematics and stuff about science and biospheres and literature and the use of words and so many things brought into that thing, and I was just mesmerized. I thought that's who I want to be, and finally it was the first time that I could see myself like I can be a teacher. You know, I don't have to be this vision that I thought a teacher was. I could be a teacher like that, and I'm pretty shy, and I like ran up to her after class like, can I observe in your classroom? And she said, you know, yes, of course, and did it. And the day after I observed in the classroom, I'm like, can I be your student teacher? You know, she was not
Can
going
I
to be
come
able
live
to
with
take.
you?
Yeah, can I come live with you? Can you teach me everything you know? And we had a bond through geometry with bubbles because at the Children's Museum in Boston, I had worked at the Bubbles exhibit, you know, and teaching geometric concepts. And the man who wrote that unit worked at the Boston Museum. He was my mentor there. And she had done his unit in her classroom. And so we were instant friends. And so we're still friends to this day. I taught at her school, Hinsdale, after student teaching. And she's still a great influence in my life. She's still writing curriculum, you know, at the age of 80, still asking me for advice on it. And I'm like, you're the expert, you know. So.
Oh, that's awesome. So what factors do you think made your work successful?
As a classroom teacher, probably the biggest factor was is that I just like learning. Like ever since I can remember, I like learning about everything. And I think that's what drew me to elementary school teaching was the breadth of the knowledge. You know, where every day you get to do a little bit of mathematics and science and history and reading and writing and you get to do it all. And I think kids feed off of that when they see that somebody is so excited about this novel or somebody's so excited about the way that a poet, you know, uses the rhythm and rhyme in this to kind of get the beat going, or the way that, you know, constellations are perceived in different cultures. When they sense your excitement, they get excited too. So it's a non-tangible thing, but I think it's important. You know, if they sense that the teacher is in love with learning, that they're like, well, we might as well try it, you know.
Right. It's the string that pulls them forward, that motivation, right?
Yeah.
What matters in a daily schedule? What has to be there for teaching?
In a daily schedule, what matters? I think two things, and they say this with what's relaxing to the brain is watching, like sitting on a beach and watching the horizon and watching the waves come in, that it does two things for the brain. Like it gives a sense of the expected, you know, you expect to see the horizon, you expect the repetition of it, but then there's novelty of seagulls flying or kids playing across the sand. And so I think it's the same in a teaching day. Like you need predictability in every day, so you know you're going to be safe at school. You know this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is the expectation for the day. But then you also need novelty, you know, like this is going to happen, but how is it going to happen? So that combination of predictability and novelty in each day, I think is key, you know, and keeps people coming. You know, the people who like the security of the predictability,
Yes.
and the people who like the what's next, you know.
Right. And it's life too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
What is one disaster in your teaching you wish you could go back and change?
Well, this we can thank Danny Reilly, my mentor who liked geometry and bubbles, and my mentor at the Boston Children's Museum, Geometry and Bubbles. Every year, you know, told the kids like, oh, we're going to do this geometry and bubbles. Well, you know, one year we just did not get to it. You know, bunch of stuff was thrown into the curriculum. There was just no time, you know. But I promised, and I wanted to make good on my promise. So it was the second to the last day of school. Like, we're going to fit this in, and then it rained. It was field day. Everything was outside. They had to be moved in. Our custodians were working so hard to like move all the stuff back in the house and rearrange lunch tables and all that. Well, I was sticking to my promise. We're going to do this in the science lab, geometry with bubbles. Well, all this bubble mixture just started tipping on the floor, and I'm sure there were a couple rascals that, had it. And so this vinyl floor in the science lab is covered with soapy solution. And kids are sliding. I'm like, somebody's going to crack their head open or break their elbow. But I can't tell Mr. Rich. Like, Mr. Rich loved that school. He took care of it like it was his child. And he was working so hard already. Like, we have to figure out how to clean this up without getting Mr. Rich into it. So my kids definitely learned the definition of non-absorbent that day with those brown paper towels,
Oh, yeah.
that you get. And we just were smearing it around more, and more kids were sliding and slipping. And I'm like, we have to call Mr. Rich. There's no other way. And he was so mad. We had such a good relationship for, 14 years, and he was so mad.
Relationship.
It is. It was devastating to me, and I felt terrible, but somebody was going to get really hurt. And so he stayed mad for a couple weeks. He said, go home for the summer and come back, and I'll be okay. And so he was.
He was.
But it's something that I wish I could take back. Cause
Yeah, I think there's always a lot of those stories. I have my oobleck story.
Oh, yeah, I have one too.
What is a memory, or what memory is a powerful one for you of a student in crisis?
So there's lots of crises, that come up, and there were some serious ones that, involved, the intervention of a social worker and the school psychologist and the principal, and but this one just happened kind of within our little classroom, without the need of that. And we did a typical come back from winter vacation, winter break, write in your journal, write about a day that was memorable during your winter break in your journal. And then, people share their journal, the typical. Mm-hmm. And one student, every journal entry had something to do about his turtle, Pokey. And so we all got to know Pokey over the time. And so when it was his time to read, some kids read about going to the Blackhawks game, or they went sledding with their friends. And his was about Pokey, of course, because they all were. Yeah. And in the middle of it, it just took a turn, and Pokey died, while he's reading, and it died over winter break, died while he was reading, and then he just burst out in tears. And then we all started crying, and so we, asked him if he wanted to go get a drink of water, and would it help if we all just wrote a few words, about Pokey, And so that lesson became about sympathy cards, and there's all these different types of writing that you do, in the Common Core standards, you do this type of writing, but sympathy cards is not one. So just talked about what goes into a sympathy card and why it helps people, and some ideas for it. And so he wrote about Pokey, and we all wrote sympathy cards to him and tied them up in a ribbon and gave it to him, and he just read them the whole day. So I thought it was a powerful lesson, not just to ease his pain, but for the rest of the class to be like, writing can really help people,
Right, and also because you're right, that nobody teaches you to do that, and they should, because that's a hard thing they have to do sometimes.
Yeah, and it's a specific audience, It's like, oh, who's your audience? It's a very real thing, and not an artificial writing construct, that's part of the curriculum. Yeah. But it's one of the most powerful pieces of writing that you can do,
Right, it is true. What is a moment when you learned something about teaching that you wish you'd known much sooner?
It was way too late, way too late in my career that I learned this. And it's about joining committees, and, in the beginning of your career, you want to be a good employee. And so you join committees so you look good, and you've got the right things on your rubric for your evaluation. all that. And then in the middle of my career, it became a lot of writing curriculum, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody else is going to write, the science curriculum, I want a hand in it. If somebody else is going to be telling me what I'm going to be teaching in mathematics, I want a hand in it.
Yeah.
I wanted my hand in everything. So I joined Marsha Brady style every committee, and I wanted my hand in every piece of it. And I really wish I hadn't done that, because it took a lot of time out of the classroom, time after school where I should have been, making phone calls to parents or writing an extra special thing on a student's writing or other things. I was making subplans because I was going to be out, at this committee meeting.
That's true.
And then when I was out at these committee meetings during the school day, there would be these crises, I'd have to leave the committee meeting to deal with the crisis that was in the classroom. And I lost track that it's about the kids,
Right.
and that it was becoming about the curriculum, and I had to have my hand in it, and losing the fact, like, these are the kids that would benefit so much more from extra time with them than it would on a certain tweak on a curriculum element. So,
What are the thoughts or the main themes that guide your teaching?
The main things kind of still come from my mentors about big ideas.
Mm-hmm.
I think you remember things better if your brain can attach, things to each other and create those synapses, or I'm sure there's technical words for it, but that children learn best through experiences. And through kind of concrete experiences, concrete things, and then moving to the abstract, the old Jerome Bruner thing. But I believe in that you learn best through experiences, and then attach things to those experiences and keep building on.
Okay.
So, and then going back, just, it's all about the kids, but it's true. It sounds cliche,
Yeah.
but it's true. Each kid is different, and, to be intuitive to what each individual student's needs are, and try to meet them where their needs. Some are academic, some are social, some are emotional. Everybody's a combination of but what do they really need, and try to, help that along.
Okay. What do students do to show you they are succeeding?
I think the biggest thing is if they come back to school and they share with you some experience that they had outside of school that's related to what's in school. So, you've read a book together, you've done a read aloud, and then the student comes back, I read the books in the series, like, oh, which one? All of them, after winter break,
exactly.
I remember this group of boys, and they came rushing in on a Monday morning, and they're like, Mrs. Meade, we had a sleepover in Frankie's backyard in his tent. And I'm like, oh, that's great. And he's like, and we saw Orion in the sky, the constellation Orion.
Yeah.
So things that we had been learning in class have spilled over into their regular lives. So, I know there's plenty of concrete, testing and assessments that you can always point to, and those are there and they help in their own way. But that's the juice, is the Mrs. Meade, we saw Orion in the sky, that, shows that, they're learning, and they're
and it's in their hearts.
It's becoming within them.
What do you think the importance is of science instruction?
Science. So, science, it's really kind of getting marginalized, it seems, as much as people talk about STEM education, it seems like it's getting more and more marginalized in the school day in terms of the attention it's given, but it's really a lot of the same skills that you do in, ELA instruction in terms of cause and effect, and you have this theory, every time I eat red popsicles, it seems like I break out in a rash on my hands. And so I'm gonna not eat red popsicles and see if I don't have a rash, and I'm gonna eat red popsicles and see if I do have a rash.
Yeah.
So this kind of cause and effect and kind of creating your own experiments in your mind. There's the whole, it's the future of our planet. It's the future, the kids that are in front of you, you have to give them respect because they're the ones that are going to carry this thing on. And they need the knowledge, and they need just the approach of how to think through things logically and systematically, and they need the inspiration just by the amazing world, that we live in. All three things just kind of combine together, and so they can help us engineer, and I don't want to put it all on them, but,
Right.
If you can do any part of inspiring that, it just might save us all.
Yeah.
And, if you're lucky enough, you get to meet Bill Nye the Science Guy.
How
Not
many
once,
times?
Not twice, but 3 times.
Three times, yes.
So,
I'm so jealous. Very jealous of the Bill Nye thing. Maybe this will get to him and maybe it'll all work out. But I think you've done a lot to inspire kids in science. And I don't think it's just Bill Nye. I think it's just you. Yeah. Which of the fine arts, singing, dancing, visual arts, drama, etc., do you promote the most in your classroom?
I'm going to have to go with drama. Many students in Mrs. Meade's class have put on the planet play. The planets, we're studying the planets. But it's the same thing, like if you have something to attach it to, once you've played the role of, Neptune, you know everything there is to know about Neptune. And and once, and then you appreciate what a unique place Earth is and why we have to take care of it as scientists and citizens of the Earth. And so we would do a lot with vocabulary, acting out vocabulary words, kind of improv theater, we'd have to, the rest of the audience would have to guess what vocabulary words you were acting out. And so still to this day I can remember words like, sneer and other words based on the skit, that the kids have given, and they love that part, and I'm sure they remember every vocabulary word that they were part of, the skit in creating. So drama was just fun, and for kids who struggled with reading comprehension, reading, then acting it out, in our own way, and then coming back to the piece again and reading it again, then there's just more things for them to attach things to and help with understanding. So drama was a big one, and then singing would be number 2. Water goes up in the air of apparition. Comes
You have
out
a Macarena
comes
of the
out
water
and drops
cycle?
comes out and drops in condensation. Falls to the earth as precipitation. Hey, water cycle. Point to Polaris, arc to Arcturus, leak to Leo the lion. Use a Big Dipper to help you find your way through the nighttime sky. Just goofy things,
Wow.
but songs stay with you. Ask anybody to recite lyrics from a 1970 song, 1980 song, in our generation, and they can come up with the lyrics.
Exactly.
So,
Or the famous Homer Simpson skit where he's like, "If you are on fire, here's what you should do." Da 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 da. Because he can't remember.
he has to go through the whole song.
Yeah. But no, songs are high on my list. This is the part of the interview where we go into a survey based on James Lipton and also based on who he got it from, which is Bernard Pivot. So these questions are unusual, but I think they're good. What is a letter you like?
And like a letter of the alphabet.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I like the letter B, just because it looks how it sounds. It's bouncy and bubbly and beautiful, and just it just has all these happy connotations with it. Bubbly, bouncy bee. Mr. B with his beautiful buttons. So I just like the way it sounds, and no other reason.
What is a letter you hate?
I'm not particularly fond of the letter Z, for no particular reason.
Okay.
I just don't care for it. But it seems like bad guys, I don't always have a Z associated with their names. But the one I really don't like is K when it's used inappropriately, like in Kids Country Club, when it's substituted for a C, or Cars for Kids when they use the K instead of a C. It
just grates on you.
It grates on me.
Especially the word corny.
Oh, yeah,
It's gotta be
any
one
of
the
them.
worst. Okay, I'll go with that. What do you love to hear as a teacher?
I like the hum of a classroom when things are, you're at that point of the year where your, kind of procedures are in place or expectations are in place, and you walk around the classroom and kids are doing what they're supposed to be doing, having meaningful conversations, working on the projects, talking amongst themselves, just that buzz in the classroom, like, this is what
Things are good.
things are good. This is what we worked for,
Okay, and I love that too. That's a beautiful sound. What do you hate to hear as a teacher?
The electric pencil sharpener.
Amen.
Like at every inappropriate time,
Yes.
And I've tried, like, we're only going to use manual pencil sharpeners, and I'd buy 100 of them at Staples in the beginning of the year and keep handing them out, and it would somehow we'd always get back to that, and I just hate it. I hate it.
Should be outlawed. Besides teaching, what other profession would you have liked to pursue?
I could see myself as a national park ranger.
Mm-hmm.
Just to wear that uniform and be outside working all day, be amongst the trees, wear the socks.
Yeah.
Have people being out in nature and be happy. I would like that very much.
Okay. Maybe the next Sheldon Johnson. He's an African American park ranger that got African American people to go to national parks.
Oh,
Isn't that cool?
good for him.
Yeah. He's a cool guy. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say upon your arrival?
I think the words "welcome home" would be nice.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So.
Okay, well, thank you very much. We would love to thank Christine Marie. Am I right on your middle name?
It's Mary.
It's Mary?
Yeah,
All
Christine
this
Mary
time.
Meade. Yeah.
Well, Christine Mary, who I've known since we were 13. Christine Mary Aronson Meade for appearing today on
I feel
Inside.
like I'm in trouble. Christine Mary Aronson Meade.
You are not in trouble ever.
You blabbered on too long on
She
these
is
questions.
not in trouble. She is not in trouble. And we would like to thank you for coming to Inside this teacher's studio.